Let's talk about that feeling.
Yeah.
You know the one, right? Where your to-do list just feels huge
hmm
and time seems to just disappear. You feel like you're trying hard, but things just aren't getting done.
Yeah, it's so common. And, it often goes a bit deeper than just needing like a better planner or some new app.
Right.
So, in this deep dive, we're really pulling apart the concepts behind that struggle. Time management, yes, but also something called executive function. And the surprising power of just breaking tasks down.
Okay.
We've sifted through quite a bit of material scientific stuff, practical guides, personal stories too, including this idea of time blindness.
Exactly. And our goal here isn't just, rattling off a list of tips.
No.
We want to really unpack why. Why can managing time and tasks be so incredibly hard for some people, maybe even for you listening,
hmm
and then connect that why to, well, proven techniques the sources say can actually help you face those tasks with, I guess, more clarity and maybe a bit less stress.
Definitely less stress, hopefully.
Yeah.
So where do we start? The basics.
Yeah, let's lay the groundwork. Time management.
Right. So at its core, the material defines time management pretty simply. It's about using the time you have available in a useful, effective way.
Sounds easy enough when you put it like that.
Yeah, but it really leans heavily on this other set of cognitive skills, executive functions.
Executive functions, EF. I kind of think of them as the brains, like air traffic control or project manager.
That's a great analogy. Multiple sources, Cleveland Clinic, Beyond, Booksmart, others, they all point to these skills. They help us plan, organize.
Get started on things.
Exactly. Task initiation, stay focused, manage ourselves, actually reach our goals.
Okay.
And here's the thing. Time management isn't just one of these skills. It's more like it needs several EFs working together smoothly. Like an orchestra, maybe?
Okay, yeah. So which specific skills are we talking about? What did the sources highlight?
Well, there's working memory. That's like your mental sticky note for holding info you need right now.
Right.
Planning and prioritization, figuring out the steps and what's most important. Task initiation, literally just starting.
That's a big one for many people.
Oh, huge. Then organization, sustained attention, cognitive flexibility, being able to switch gears,
Yeah.
and inhibition control, resisting distractions or, impulses.
Wow, okay. That's quite a list. But what's really powerful here, I think, is what the sources emphasize about these skills.
Yeah.
They're not like fixed traits you're born with and stuck with. They're skills.
Exactly. Skills. And the good news is skills can be taught. They can be learned, practiced, improved.
At any age, right?
At any age. Whether you're a student, managing a career, just handling life stuff, these are abilities you can develop.
That idea of potential growth is, well, it's really hopeful.
It is. But we also need to acknowledge something important. For a lot of people, the challenge isn't just about, say, learning a new study technique in the usual way.
Yeah.
For some, there seems to be a fundamental difference in how their brain actually processes time itself and tasks. Which brings us to this concept that came up quite a bit, especially related to things like ADHD or executive dysfunction, time blindness.
Time blindness. That term really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. One source, SHAD, explains it as a real difficulty developing that sort of intuitive internal clock that many people just have.
So instead of time feeling like a continuous flow, past, present, future.
Right. For someone with time blindness, it's often mostly about time present. The now is huge, almost overwhelming.
Okay.
And concepts like time past, learning from what happened before, remembering commitments, or time future, like accurately guessing how long a task will take, or seeing how today's choices affect next week, those don't always land with the same weight.
Wow. So it really is a different way of experiencing time.
It seems to be, yeah, a pretty fundamental difference from the neurotypical experience.
And the real world impact of this, or just broader executive dysfunction,
Yeah.
it can be massive, right?
Oh, definitely. The sources, personal stories, they talk about chronic lateness, constantly underestimating task duration, sometimes by a lot.
Yeah, that it'll only take 5 minutes turning into an hour.
Exactly. Feeling totally swamped by work because it's just hard to see the steps, the path through it. And that struggle with getting started task initiation. You know you need to do it, but you feel stuck.
Frozen, yeah. And the social side, too.
Right. That Reddit thread we looked at really hit on the frustration. People just don't get it. They think it's laziness or you don't care. When the sources are really clear, this isn't a moral failing. It's a cognitive challenge. Think about those reasons for lateness CHADD listed.
Like not writing things down.
Working memory, organization issues, yeah.
Yeah.
Taking on way too much.
Planning, prioritization, Maybe impulse control.
Not calculating travel time planning again, getting sucked into something else, hyperfocus.
Losing track of time completely.
Yeah, inhibition failure. Or only being able to start when the deadline is screaming at you.
Right, needing that extreme pressure.
These are all linked back to those EF challenges and that sense of time blindness, not character flaws.
Okay, so if this is ringing bells for anyone listening, if you recognize that feeling of overwhelm, where do you even start? What do the sources suggest?
Well, there are a few angles, but one strategy comes up again and again. It's really foundational.
Which is?
Breaking tasks down.
Task decomposition.
Oh,
Or chunking, splitting.
exactly. Different names, same core idea. Sources like Active Collab describe it simply. Take that big, scary task.
The one that feels impossible.
Yes, and chop it up into smaller, much more doable pieces.
Okay, and why is that so powerful?
Yeah.
Especially if starting things or feeling overwhelmed is the main issue?
Well, think about it. A huge task looks like a giant wall, right? Your brain just stalls.
Yeah.
But if you break it down, the first step might be tiny, like open the file or find the phone number.
Okay, much less scary.
Way less intimidating.
Yeah.
It makes starting possible. It cuts down that feeling of overwhelm because you're just looking at the next little bit, not the whole mountain.
Right, it creates a clearer path forward.
Exactly. And the sources say it helps with efficiency, planning, tracking. Seeing those small wins really helps with motivation too.
Okay, so how do you actually do it effectively? Active Collab had some steps, right?
Yeah, they laid out a pretty clear process. Let's walk through some of those ideas, thinking about how they tackle those EF hurdles.
Okay.
First step, understand the task. Like, really get clear. What's the end goal? What are the requirements?
So write it down, maybe, if working memory is tricky.
Absolutely. Make it concrete. Then break it down. Divide it into smaller, sort of self-contained units, like their report writing example. Research, draft intro, draft section 1, edit.
Makes sense. Seeing distinct chunks helps if organization or sequencing is hard.
Precisely. Which leads to the next step.
Huh.
Sequence the tasks, put them in order. What depends on what else?
Crucial for planning, another EF skill.
Definitely. Then estimate time. But here's a key estimate for each small chunk.
Ah, so you're not trying to guess for the whole massive thing.
Right. This directly tackles that time blindness issue. You get better practice estimating small, defined bits of work. You build time awareness gradually.
Okay, that's smart. What's next?
Prioritize. Okay, you've got your chunks. Which ones are most critical right now?
Helps you focus, maybe resist distractions if inhibition is tough.
Exactly. Then, plan for breaks. Don't forget breaks. Schedule them in.
Like the Pomodoro technique we'll probably touch on.
Yeah, that's one way to formalize it. Breaks are vital for sustained attention, preventing burnout, especially if focus waxes and wanes or you risk hyperfocus.
Good point.
Then, track your progress. This is huge. Mark things off. Use a list, a board, whatever works.
Seeing that progress is motivating, right?
Yeah.
Helps counter that only now exists feeling.
Totally. It shows you've moved forward.
Yeah.
And finally, review and adjust. The plan isn't set in stone. Check in. Did the time estimate work? Are you stuck? Adjust.
So it's flexible, which is about cognitive flexibility, another EF skill.
Exactly. It's a dynamic tool, not something to beat yourself up with if it's not perfect first time.
And within that breaking down idea, there was also micro-productivity.
Oh yeah, Active Collab mentioned that. Taking it even further, breaking tasks into really tiny steps, things you can do in just a few minutes.
Leveraging those little pockets of time during the day.
Right. Those micro moments that often get lost.
Okay, so task breakdown is fundamental. But beyond that, the sources mentioned lots of other name techniques, right?
They did. And a key point across the board was there's no magic bullet. Different things work for different people.
Yeah, it depends on your specific challenges, maybe what you're trying to manage, like a big project versus daily stuff.
Exactly. It's more like finding tools for your personal toolkit.
So maybe instead of just listing them all, we could highlight one or two from that USAHS source and connect them back to the EF challenges.
Good idea. Okay, how about the Pomodoro technique? We mentioned it briefly.
Right, work for 25 minutes, short break, repeat.
Yeah. So why might this help someone who struggles with starting things or staying focused?
Well, that 25 minutes feels achievable, maybe.
Yeah.
Less daunting than work for 3 hours.
Exactly. It gets you over that initiation hump. I can do anything for 25 minutes.
Right, yeah.
And those built-in regular breaks, they help manage attention, prevent burnout, stop you getting lost in hyperfocus if that's an issue. And the timer itself is brilliant for building time awareness if you struggle with time blindness.
It imposes an external structure on time. Makes sense. What about when everything feels urgent? How do you prioritize then? The Eisenhower Matrix came up.
Yes, the urgent important matrix. You basically sort tasks into 4 boxes.
Important and urgent.
Do it now. Important but not urgent.
Schedule it. Plan for it.
Right. Urgent but not important.
Delegate it if you can.
Oh.
Or maybe just realize it's not the top priority.
Yeah, or defer. And then neither urgent nor important.
Delete. Get rid of it.
Exactly. So this technique directly hits those EF skills of planning and prioritization.
Right. If you tend to just react to whatever's loudest, this forces you to step back and evaluate.
Precisely. It helps you focus energy, especially on that crucial, important but not urgent quadrant, the stuff that actually builds your future but doesn't scream for attention right now.
That categorization seems really helpful for clarity.
Yeah.
What about tools? The sources mentioned tools that can help too.
Oh, absolutely. Visual timers came up. Princeton PSLC, Timo mentioned them.
Why visual specifically?
For time blindness, seeing time physically pass like sand in an hourglass, or a depleting color block on a visual timer, or even just the hands moving on an analog clock can be much more intuitive than just seeing digital numbers change.
Ah, okay. It makes the passage of time tangible.
Exactly. And then there are digital tools specifically designed with EF support in mind, like Timo, which offers visual schedules, can use AI to help break down tasks, has widgets to keep your plan front and center.
So they help with the organization, planning, tracking,
Right.
all those things.
Right. They provide external structure and reminders.
Okay, so we've got task breakdowns, specific techniques, helpful tools. But what if you try these things and it still feels really hard? Or progress feels really slow?
That's a super important question because the sources are clear. These are skills, right? And skills need practice, consistent practice.
But practice can be hard if the basic skill isn't quite there yet.
Exactly. And if the standard advice just isn't working for you, or if you're dealing with significant executive dysfunction, the material definitely points towards seeking external support.
Like coaching, executive function coaching or academic coaching.
Yes. Beyond Booksmart, effective students, even those Reddit threads, they highlight coaching as a really valuable resource.
So how does that work? What does a coach actually do?
Well, it's very personalized. A coach doesn't just hand you a worksheet. They work with you, your specific brain, your specific challenges, your goals.
Okay.
They use evidence-based strategies, but tailor them. And crucially, they often help you practice these skills in real situations, not just theoretically.
So applying it to your actual life and work.
Right. Those Beyond Booksmart testimonials mention feeling empowered, finally getting strategies for tasks they'd always avoided, building confidence. It's like having a personal trainer for your executive functions.
A guide and accountability partner.
Exactly. And kids also mention their collaborative problem-solving approach, which focuses on building EF skills by actually working through real-life problems together with someone, learning in context.
That real-world application feels key. And consistency came up a lot too, right? Like building routines.
Absolutely. Consistent routines, using those timers, maybe having accountability partners, all strategies mentioned to support that essential practice. And that line from Chi.
Believe that your time is finite.
Yeah, sounds a bit blunt, maybe, but it really underscores the need to make conscious choices about where that finite time goes.
And were there other things mentioned that might help support EF?
The Cleveland Clinic source briefly touched on some other areas being explored, certain kinds of exercise, especially ones combining physical and cognitive challenges.
Interesting.
Cognitive training games or programs, neurofeedback, mindfulness practices. The catch being that improvement usually requires ongoing, consistent effort with these things. It's not usually a one-shot fix.
Right. It's about building and maintaining those skills.
Okay.
So let's try and wrap this all together for everyone listening.
Okay.
We've taken a pretty deep dive, haven't we?
Yeah.
Into why managing time and tasks can be so tough for so many. We looked at those underlying cognitive skills, the executive functions.
And that specific challenge of time blindness for some folks.
Right. And then we explored how a really fundamental technique like just breaking tasks down can directly counteract some of those difficulties.
Yeah, making things feel less overwhelming, easier to start.
And we touched on a few different named time management methods like Pomodoro or the Eisenhower Matrix, plus tools like visual timers.
Emphasizing that the goal is finding what works for you, your brain, your situation.
Exactly. It's not one size fits all.
And importantly, remembering that the sources really stress that improvement is possible. These are skills that can be developed.
It's a process, though.
Definitely a process. Recognizing the struggle, being willing to experiment with techniques, using tools, maybe seeking support, like coaching if you need it. They're all valid steps.
So just to recap the journey, we started with that common struggle, defined time management and the crucial role of executive functions, explored the concept and impact of time blindness.
Then we really unpacked task decomposition, that breaking down strategy, sampled a few other techniques and tools.
And finished by talking about the importance of practice, consistency, and getting support when you need it, like through coaching.
Yeah. And I think the big takeaway from all the sources is that struggling with time and tasks, it's usually not about not trying hard enough or being lazy.
Right, it's often rooted in specific cognitive skills.
Skills that, thankfully, can be strengthened. It takes effort, it takes the right approach, but change is possible.
Okay, so here's something for you to think about until our next deep dive. How does reframing these challenges, seeing them potentially as underdeveloped skills rather than, say, character flaws, how does that shift things for you?
Does it change how you feel about maybe past struggles or how willing you might be now to try a new strategy or even reach out for support?
Something to ponder.